director of the Leadership Institute here at Regina Dominican High School. We teach authentic self-confidence, joyful learning, compelling communication, and global citizenship. It is with great pleasure that we welcome Dina Bair today. She is an Emmy Award-winning journalist who is currently the anchor for the WGN Midday News. She exemplifies what it means to be a leader in many ways, both personal and professional. She is also a medical reporter for Medical Watch. Dina joined WGN-TV as a full-time general assignment reporter in September of 1994. A few of her most significant accomplishments are: in 2013, she traveled to Italy to cover the election of the new Pope. She reported live from Vatican City. She is a recipient of numerous awards, including 9 Emmy Awards, a Peter Lisagor Award from the Society of Professional Journalists, and multiple Associated Press Awards for both anchoring and reporting. She was named a fellow by the National Press Foundation for the Cancer Issues Seminar in Washington, D.C. She spent a month reporting inside the Pediatric Care Unit at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Her new series and documentary, Intensive Caring, which detail cutting-edge medical treatments and life and death decisions, won awards for its news and documentary coverage. Dina received her B.S. in radio, TV, and film from Northwestern University. She has 4 children and is a triathlete who enjoys running, boxing, lifting weights, and competitive ballroom dancing. In addition to all of this, she's involved in giving back. She is a founding board member of the breast cancer charity 1 in a Million, Dancing with Chicago Celebrities. She leads a media running team devoted to raising funds for charity. She's also involved in the National Italian American Foundation, the Muscular Dystrophy Association, and the American Cancer Society, among others. She is an advisory board member for Soleil Freedom, a movement to aid victims of sex trafficking. Let's welcome Dina Bair.
That was awfully long, wasn't it? Thank you for being so patient through that. I want to thank you for waiting for me to come because, as you know, I did have to anchor the Midday News before I got here. And your organizers so kindly turned everything around so that I could be here with you. I think one of the most challenging parts about my life might be balancing work and taking care of my family and doing some of these philanthropic things that I love to do. And I appreciate when people can be flexible so that I can kind of fit it all in and try not to speed on my way here. But that really is a choice that I make because it gives me back so much to interact with people who are in the community and people who are doing so much good, really. And so I guess that's how I wanted to start today's talk, and that is talking about your choices. You have a choice which school you attend, right? You can go to parochial school, you can go to a public school. You have a choice about how you do in school, how much you do your homework, how well you perform. You have a choice about who you want to be. And you also have a choice about whether or not you're going to be happy. And I know some of you, if bad things happen in your life, this is a bad day, and this is frustrating, and I'm mad, and I'm angry. But the choice is always yours. When I got to college in broadcast journalism at Northwestern, I moved from the East Coast. I was the only one of my friends who moved to the Midwest so far away. And there were 100 people in the broadcast program there. And we sat in an auditorium, much like this one. And the dean stood up in the front, and he said, "Look around you, because only one of you will get a job in your chosen field." I was like, "But wait, there's 100 of us?" And I got really freaked out. And what do you think I did? I called my mom, and I started crying. "Mom, I'm never going to make it. This is not going to work." And my mom said to me, "Be that one person. It's your choice." And I thought, well, I don't know, but I guess I could try. And it turns out that I didn't have to be the smartest person in my class because there were a lot of really smart people at Northwestern. I just had to be committed and dedicated to that choice. So when we graduated, my fellow broadcast journalism majors decided they didn't want to move away to a small town, and that was really the way to pay your dues to become a journalist back then. They didn't want to make next to no money, because let me tell you, my salary was like little. They wanted to be successful immediately, and so they made choices, and their choices were to leave the business. And my choice was to make a go of it. And guess what? To this day, I am that person that is successfully working in broadcast media, coming from that program at that time. And boy, let me tell you, after those sacrifices, it has been a sweet ride. I have met rock and roll stars. I've interviewed 3 American presidents. I've met the British Prime Minister. I've met the President of Russia. I've been at the Bulls and Blackhawks championships. I've been in the dugout and in the locker room for the Cubs. I've flown in an F-16, and no, I didn't pass out or throw up. I've met 2 popes, one of whom is a saint now, and I went to Mass with Mother Teresa, of course, as you know, who is also a saint now. As part of my job, as you mentioned earlier in my bio, they sent me to cover the election of Pope Francis. And I was really nervous about that assignment because I thought, this is a great responsibility. I'm Catholic, and they're giving me this role because they want me to be able to take all of you, to transport you to Rome, to help you understand why this is so significant. And I was really scared for that, so I prayed so hard. While I was there, it poured rain. We were standing out front of St. Peter's, waiting for the white smoke, because that would indicate that a pope had been elected. And at the time, they weren't even close. Every time they voted, there was no majority. So most of the experts, some of whom had been there for many of the conclaves, said, I think we're about 2 days away. And at that point, we had gone to the hardware store, and we got a piece of plastic, and we made a makeshift tent, because we were literally standing in the rain, and we used the tripods like those to, string it all together with plastic. And I had this little voice in my head that said, you know what, you better get prepared. And it's kind of like if you have to do a term paper. So I had been there for almost a week reporting on all the people who could potentially be elected pope, on how the process works, and all of that stuff is sort of hard to remember if you're going to do an oral report on it. So I needed to just get all of the information together and just make little bullet points for myself. So I told my photographer, you know what, I just have this odd feeling that it's going to happen soon. And they're like, every expert, Dina, says it's not going to. Who do you think you are? I'm like, I don't know. I need some time in the little tent. And so I took my time, and I wrote down all my little bullet points, and I was in there about an hour. And when I got to literally the very last little star of what I would say when I went up there, because I knew it was my job to go live, when the election happened, they said, you're on, and you're going to have to talk for about an hour in our coverage. And right when I was writing the last bullet point, my photographer said, oh my, and he used God's name in vain, which I won't do, it's the white smoke. And I looked at him a little bit like, told you so, but got up and delivered the report. When we got back, we were so in awe of everything that had happened there that we convinced our bosses to let us do a half-hour documentary. I'm going to let you see a little bit of that here and a little bit of the flavor of what we experienced when we were there. So if we could roll that video, please.
Like a river flooding St. Peter's Square, they came by the thousands, soon hundreds of thousands. Many had fled from Mother Nature's assault on the area in the days leading up to the conclave.
It was cold and wet, so we decided to just watch it on TV.
We were soaked to the bone. We were there for about 3 hours. The wind and the rain, it finally got to us. We were watching the stovepipe. So we said, we don't know what's going to happen. We just decided to leave.
But the smoke was a calling back, a sign. After only a day and a half, a conclave so speedy most were surprised at the smoke. Many had all but given up on this night.
We heard the bells ringing and checked Facebook, and sprinted right over to the Vatican.
Last time I saw the conclave, I was just in the 7th grade, and you never would have been able to predict watching in the little classroom that one day I'd be able to be in St. Peter's watching this happen. It's really incredible.
We just ran 20 blocks, finally caught my breath.
All of a sudden, we heard these cheers and these screams, and the bells started ringing all over Vatican City here. The media was caught off guard as the word white in different languages filled the air. And as the white billowed across the sky, it carried the clouds away. For those in the crowd calling out for people to put down their umbrellas, soon there was no need for the cover. As a new pope was elected, the driving rains went away. Clear sky, one twinkling star. All that was left were tears of joy.
I'm standing here. You're not moving.
As the curtains opened, first gasps of joy, then in unison, complete, reverent silence. For the Romans expecting to hear an Italian name, confusion. For others who had heard the names offered as potential popes, wonder. Jorge Mario Bergoglio? Ah, Argentina.
Sancte Romani Ecclesiae Cardinalem Bergoglio.
After the announcement, the wait, to finally see the man no one seemed to know. As he slowly walked out, he paused. Then he began to speak.
Buonasera.
He prayed with the crowd. The locals knew the words. Soft-spoken, yet easily understandable. Though they didn't know Cardinal Bergoglio, in an instant they fell in love with Pope Francis.
So even though I didn't understand it all, it was his demeanour, and I loved how he came out and just stopped for a second, and you could really see when it was close up in his face, he was taking it all in, and that just endeared me to him as well.
Happy, positive. I felt that he was very charismatic, and he had a good message on his first blessing. I do hope that he can bring your church in a better direction.
While giant screens reflected his image to the people, Pope Francis and the other cardinals who gathered on the balconies of St. Peter's soaked in a different picture.
In the dark, all you could see was lights. You knew the people were there, and expected to see a sea of umbrellas and be very dark, but it wasn't. And this is where the pastor is, and when it's light and when it's dark, he's with his people, and they respond.
A bright show for the man who had shown them to be a worthy leader with a sense of humor. Pope Francis telling cardinals after his election, "God forgive you." They laughed. As he spoke to the people, he humbly asked, "Please pray for me." Then, as if talking to himself after a long election process and a weighty new position,
Buonanotte e buon riposo.
like a caring father, Pope Francis dismissed the crowd. Get some rest.
I don't know if you can tell there, having seen a video of Pope Francis since then, he was really nervous. He had a press conference the day after he was elected, and he said he just couldn't believe it, and he wasn't sure that he was up to the task, but he knew if he prayed that God would guide him. And I really and truly believe that voice in my head, that was God. I asked, please help me to be the best I can be on this day, and he answered me and gave me that little nudge to be as prepared as I could so that I could bring that message to all of you. To say that I am blessed in what I do and in my connection with God is really an understatement. But in my career, I also have watched a child die right before my eyes. You have no idea what that feels like. When I was doing that documentary that they were talking about at Lurie Children's Hospital, there was a family that knew their daughter was going to die, and so she didn't want her to die in the hospital. They wanted her to die in their arms. And they wanted us to document that because they had trusted me in all the stories I had done before, that I would be able to tell people that it's okay to give people dignity at the end of life. And at the end of her life, we were there watching. After that incredibly sad day, that story gave me one of the happiest days because that was my first Emmy. And an idea that what I was doing was making a difference, and it was giving me the success that I had so hoped for and so prayed for. I've seen more death than I really care to, and that is a struggle in this business for sure. But I've also met the most amazing people that are making a difference in the world because of what they do, and trying to offset some of the sadness and some of the violence. And so I want to show you a story about the Lurie transport team, and these are the people that get in the helicopters in the middle of the night to try to make sure children get the best care. If we could roll that video, please.
The best and sometimes last chance for survival for sick kids begins here, atop the helipad at Lurie Children's Hospital. When children, some critically ill, require a level of care many community hospitals simply can't provide, the Lurie transport team kicks into action. We got unprecedented access, spending 24 hours with the team. Then, in the middle of the night, an urgent call and a transport that changed the course of a family's life.
A call came in about a kid that sounded pretty sick.
It is a 4-year-old with what looks like a possible new diagnosis brain tumor with a midline shift, and by my calculation, a GPS of 8 that's only breathing 60.
Holy.
When the heart rate is 80, we're going to work on maybe trying to see if we can get a flight down there.
Once I heard the vital signs, based on her age, I knew that she was very, very sick.
I love what I do. That makes me all emotional and everything.
This is Tracy Rojas' third flight of her entire career.
It's a different day every day, and it's a different transport every transport.
Most of her transports are by ambulance, but flying is twice as fast as driving. And tonight, she and her partner, respiratory therapist Kristen Vela, need to reach the little girl with life-threatening pressure in her brain urgently. It will be a 17-minute trip to Silver Cross Hospital in New London.
We feel like we're as prepared to go as we can possibly be. You just use the experience that you come with and the training that you have gotten since we've been on the Lurie team. We knew that the airway was secured. We knew that they had given as many drugs and had done as many therapies as they needed, and that's the best case scenario, that we've given the outside hospital as much information as they need to treat the patient, because it's really scary for a lot of the hospitals that don't routinely do pediatrics to get a sick infant or a sick child in their unit. You just go in, and I know what she needs to do. She knows what I need to do. Yes, sweetie. As soon as we walked in the room, you can tell by her color. You could tell by the calmness in the room that they were comfortable with kind of where they were.
To be a really successful transport nurse or respiratory therapist, you have the ability to take an enormous amount of knowledge and just very methodically go from head to toe. So we're down at Silver Cross, although it is about communication that goes from the bedside. Her heart rate is right at 100. Back to Lurie as they paint that picture for the receiving care team here.
Hey, Mom, she looks really good right now, okay? So we're just going to pack her up, put her on our monitor, switch over our IV fluids, and put on our stretcher and head off, okay?
And then when they came back and also told us that she was going to be transferred via helicopter.
I love you a little bit, right?
I'm
and Mommy, you drive safe, okay?
Be careful. Thanks so much. That was another fear that goes through your mind. All of a sudden, you're like, your kid is off the ground and in the air, and what happens, and you're not with them, and you just, a lot of things are going through your mind at that point.
Families are not allowed on the transport helicopter. Bella's parents say they are glad we were able to document the incredible care for them. Tomorrow night, see the moment Bella arrives here, the handoff, and the extraordinary measures taken to keep her alive. That's part 2 of our coverage of the Lurie transport team. At Lurie Children's Hospital, Dina Bair, WGN News.
Those nurses, those doctors, talk about leaders. Bella had a tumor in her head that was the size of my fist. They knew she was going to die, and they transported her, and they did surgery on her, and they gave her some treatment so that she lived with her parents for 8 months. I had to report on, I did this on the air too, I had to report on the day she died, and it really broke me up because her family was so positive, and they were so amazing. And you get close to the people you do stories on, especially when it lasts over time. And all you can hope is that you respect them and bring whatever joy into their lives. And we took a lot of video of Bella when she bounced back, and her mom called me to say she's so thankful to have that, and that memory of her, and knowing that she was so well taken care of. There are a lot of stories that bring me to tears. When I'm anchoring, I read the stories beforehand, and sometimes I want to cry. There is random violence. There are babies getting hit by random gunfire. There are pregnant women. And generally, I will read it and let it sink in and pray for that family, and then I will go on the air and be able to present it in a little more professional way than getting weepy on television. But we have choices in the way we cover our stories. Our writers usually will mention an offender. Say there's a terrorist who goes into a school or a public building. We mention their name, but rarely do we say the names of the victims. And that's been so frustrating to me. It would take extra time, maybe sometimes there's 10 victims, but I thought, that is somebody's mother, that is someone's child or brother or sister. We owe them to say their names, not just say the names of the offenders. And it was an argument that we had for several days in our news department, but we did end up saying all the names and showing pictures of them. And I just felt like it's just some way for us to put this all in perspective. This is not random violence. These are people who are being impacted by that. And I think until we see the scope of the problem, we won't give of ourselves to try to do something about it. When I was a news reporter, I would have to go if there were random violence, and I would have to knock on the door of a mom who just lost her child and say, may I have a picture? Because we have to do a story on this, and I would love to honor your child in this way. And it was always very difficult. I would, of course, say I was sorry that they were in my prayers, not knowing if they were faithful people or not. But my heart would dictate how I acted. And I remember in one instance, another reporter got to the family before I did. And you have to remember, we're going into some very poor neighborhoods. In many cases, they had one little tiny picture. They didn't have frames like your parents probably do, with pictures of you and the entire family. And she gave the picture to the reporter, and he said, I'll share it with everybody else. And he took it so that he wouldn't share it with us, because he wanted his story to be exclusive, that he had a picture. And it was incredibly frustrating, but that's a choice that I never would have made. I would rather my story not be as good as someone else's than to be dishonest like that. Then there are times when I'm telling a story, maybe the victim is actually a gang member themselves. Maybe their choice is what made them the victim of gunfire, because they were shooting at someone else and they ended up dying. So is it my job to say, well, he or she died because they're a gang member? No, because they're still someone's child. And so you have to tell the story and you have to tell the facts, and people will make their own conclusions in that. We also have choices when we are out in the coverage. It can get kind of scary. I was out at a rally that was people who were protesting against what they felt was poor treatment of them in the African American community. And I met with a black photographer, and the people who were there said, "Get that white girl out of here." And I'd worked with Nelson for 5 years at that point, and he said to me, "You know what, we gotta get out of here." And I said, "I trust you, I agree," even though you've got your bosses saying, "Hey, stay there, I want you to do a live report." We had to make a judgment that our safety was in jeopardy. So we got into the car and we went to leave, and they started throwing bricks at the car. And my photographer, who is a hockey player, had very good reflexes, and he backed up. So the brick came through, it hit me in the face, the glass from the window embedded into my cheek, in my eye, and I went like this and there was blood all over it, and I thought, oh my TV career's over. Let's just hope we get out of here. Okay, and he said, "I'm going to get you out of here," and he tried to drive, but the crowds were sort of surrounding the car, so it's not like he could hit people. But he got me out of there, and I wrote the story on the way to the hospital and turned it in, and it was the story about how this protest got violent and how the people did the very thing they were asking others not to do. They were prejudiced against me because of the color of my skin, and then were violent toward me because of that. And that ended up being the story that went on the air. I was pregnant when they sent me to the Republican convention, and I had a choice of whether or not to go. I knew I'd be up working from about 5 a.m. till about midnight every night in the coverage. And I decided to go because it was the opportunity of a lifetime. But then, let's face it, you have your own personal views, right? You may be Republican, you may be Democrat, but I can't show those on the air. So I have to be completely unbiased when doing that. So this year, you've got two candidates. You've got Hillary Clinton, who a lot of people have criticized for being a liar. You've got Donald Trump, who many people have criticized for being cruel and being a racist. But one of them will be our commander-in-chief, and one of them will be our president, who we will ultimately have to give respect to. Our business has changed a lot because when I started out, we were all unbiased. And now you have networks that take a stand. So you may have one story, and you've got one station who is much more conservative telling it in their way. You've got another station who's much more liberal telling it in their way. So if you watch, you wouldn't even know they were telling the same story. You wouldn't even know they were covering the same election. I happen to believe that we have to let people make their own decisions, and that we have to hold true to the facts, and we have to present them, and you all will be able to make your decisions from that, but we have to keep that integrity. The first time I met a pope, it was Pope John Paul II, and it was an amazing trip. We were in a private audience with the Holy Father, and at that point he had Parkinson's. He was really shaky, and he looked so frail, and everyone thought, oh my goodness, he's really, how can he be leading the church? And at the time, in the private audience, a sister by the name of Sister Lucia was there. She was the cook in the Cardinal's residence here in Chicago, and Pope John Paul II had met her years earlier. And as soon as he saw her, he said, "I remember your potato pancakes that you made for me." And she blushed and was all excited. He not only remembered her, he remembered exactly what she cooked for him. And it was a great indication that this man who looked frail was still very sharp, and he was still very capable of leading the Catholic Church. And that was the story I wanted to tell. What we have to do when we travel especially, we use a pool photographer because there's not enough room for a ton of photographers for every station that's going. So you designate a pool photographer, and then it is their job to make dubs of the tape and give it to the other reporters. And I couldn't wait to get the tape. I had the story all written in my head about how he said hello to Sister Lucia. I was going to start it with that. And when I got my dub, I popped it in, and that part of the video wasn't there. I thought, whoa, what's going on? So I called the reporter, who had the full photographer at that point, and he said, oh, yeah, my photographer double clutched, sorry. And that, that means he went to turn it on, but then he turned it back off again. He didn't get that shot. And I was like, wow, I would have thought he would have been more up in arms about it. And I have to tell you, I was a little suspect. So I called back. We were in Rome. I called back to my bosses, and I said, watch his story tonight. And lo and behold, he had that video in his story. He had cut it out for all the rest of us so that, again, he could have that advantage and that his story would be better. And we all told the story. It wasn't nearly as good without that picture of Sister Lucia's big smiling face, without seeing Pope John Paul put his head back and laugh about how happy he was. But again, it's a choice I never would have made. Integrity is a choice, and I urge you to keep yours throughout your lifetime, throughout all of the challenges that you face. Knowing that I have that level of integrity really does make me happy, even if no one else does. No one understood at home when they were watching. They watched and they said, oh my gosh, he's a much better reporter. Look at the stuff he got versus what she got, right? It may be only in your own heart, but if you know it, that's all that matters. I spoke a little bit in the beginning about happiness, and you may not think you have control over your own happiness because there are a lot of other things that happen in your life. I'm a 2-time cancer survivor. The first time I was diagnosed, I was in college, and I had ovarian cancer, and they told me that the chances for survival were very low at that point. There also was a great chance that I wouldn't be able to have children, but remember I told her I really wanted to graduate on time, and I really wanted to be that one person. So my parents were on the East Coast, and I stayed here. I had surgery here, I went through treatment here, and I beat it. And I still graduated on time. I just worked a little bit harder. Now fast forward to the second time. I was diagnosed, and I had 4 children by this point. I was much more scared because I didn't want those kids not to have a mother. But I couldn't show them that I was scared. I had to be strong. And I had to show them that every day is a gift. And I believe that. Coming through something that makes you question the ground that you're walking on makes you appreciate it as well. Your friends, your family, your health, your careers in school, your career in life. I do believe I am the luckiest person alive. And I am thankful that I went through that because I was a real perfectionist, and sometimes it made other people crazy, and sometimes it made me crazy, and now I say, okay, you don't have to be exactly perfect, but you do have to be happy and make the people around you happy as well. I am incredibly grateful for God's gift in my life, and trust me, God is there for you. I always believed when I was sick that I had a safety net. And it's nice to know that, and that's why your faith is such a gift. People that don't believe in God don't believe that there's someone there to pick you up when you fall, but you have that, and you should be so thankful for that. My brother passed away when he was 33 years old. He died in his sleep of a blood clot, and he had some real struggles in his life. And when he died, I got mad. I got mad at God because I thought to myself, he had all these struggles, and he got his life back on track, and he and his family were doing so well. Why would you take him away? I just don't get that. And so I asked God to show me that he was in a better place, because I didn't know what to believe at that point. I thought, life is not fair, and I'm frustrated. I was in Arizona, and I was planning the funeral because I didn't want my parents to have to lose my only brother, and so I was their only child left. And so I planned the funeral, and I gave the eulogy, and made it through very strongly. And as I was walking through the airport to come back home to Chicago, that's when I really let down, and I was crying, and I was pointing my finger up to the heavens. And I sat down at the terminal in the airport, and I looked outside, and there was this big, bright, beautiful rainbow. I was in the desert of Arizona. There was no rain. There was no storm. There was no reason for there to be a rainbow. And I looked up and I said, thank you. There's a pot of gold at the end of a rainbow, right? And that was God's way of telling me that there is a better place, and He is in a better place. And I never questioned it again, and I was never upset about it. The next summer, his 2 children came to visit me. I would take them on vacation every summer to our beach house since he was gone. And there were dreadful storms on the Jersey Shore. I wasn't sure they were going to come in and make it in. They did. And when we were driving, they were old enough to tell them the story about that rainbow, and I did. And they said, we never get any sign. You know, we talk to our dad all the time, and we never get a sign. You know, why did God give you a sign, and He doesn't give it to us? And I said, honey, sometimes you just have to wait. So we pulled up to the beach house, and we were right on the ocean there. And like I said, wicked storm, so there were big clouds. And we looked outside, and there was a double rainbow. I kid you not, one for each child. And they looked at me, and they started crying, and they said, Aunt Dina, we believe. Thank you for helping us believe. And I'll tell you one more faith story, because they have all happened in my life. When I had my twins, they were both very, very sick. One of them, the doctors told me he needed to have his skull sawed open because it had fused prematurely and his brain would not be able to grow. And the other one had bad asthma and he had pneumonia. They were both in the hospital. And someone had told me, pray to St. Therese of Lisieux. She's a little flower. I don't know if you've learned about her or know about her. But the idea is that she'll send you a flower to acknowledge that you are praying to her. And I had done an event like this one, and the people from the group sent me flowers afterwards. And it was holly. It was around Christmas time, so there were no blooming flowers in it. It was a basket of holly with berries. But in the center, there were 2 baby roses. And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, those are my roses. Like, my kids are going to be okay. And their father, who was not Catholic, was like, you are loopy. I don't know what you're thinking, but no, those 2 flowers do not mean that our kids are okay. We're in trouble here. And there was another doctor at Lurie Children's who hadn't gone over my son's file yet, and when he did, the very next day, he said that the doctors had misdiagnosed him, that he didn't need skull surgery after all, and that we could take him home. And all we had to do was turn him over on the other side in the crib, and his head would go back to normal. About 2 days later, the one with pneumonia started making a real comeback, and he was released within a week. Message from God? My husband didn't believe me, but I believe. I was really thankful for that. So my message to you is that God talks to you if you talk to Him and if you listen. And if you choose to forge ahead, knowing that you have that safety net and knowing that there are going to be barriers that are put up in front of you, but you can be the person who accepts the gifts and then passes them along and makes this world a better place. One of the other things I wanted to talk to you about is the words that you use in that vein to make this a better place. Simply, I get emails every day. Every single day. I got my hair cut last week, and it was pretty long, and I got it cut short, and they cut my bang way too short. And someone wrote in, Dina Bair, your hair looks awful. It looks greasy. Do something about it. You look ugly. Oh, gee, thank you. And the person at our station who got the email forwarded it to me while I was on the air. And I thought, boy, that doesn't make me feel very good about myself. But every day, I don't like those earrings. Your dress looks like you should be a waitress at Hooters. What? These come every day. Words are so powerful. Someone ones that I looked like a witch, and were they doing a newscast or auditions for Wicked? And you know what happened? I went home that night, and I looked in the mirror, and I'm like, my chin is kind of big. And my nose is kind of big. I guess, oh my gosh, I guess I do kind of look like a witch. It cuts through you whether you have the confidence that you want to have or not. Unkind words really are like a knife. But then kind words can be so inspirational. Just tell someone that they did a good job. Tell someone that you appreciate them as your friend. Be kind, and it will make someone's day. Tell your teachers, for goodness sakes, because they're working very hard every day. Talking about words, I also want to tell you a word I never want you to use, and that is can't. I had a 7th grade teacher who always told me can't means you won't try, and I believe that. You can. You can do anything that you put your mind to. When I was battling cancer, a group of wonderful people was having this fundraiser, and it was kind of like a Dancing with the Stars event, and they asked me to be in it. I am no dancer. I'm an athlete. Everything was straightforward, right? No, I ran, I biked, I swam as a triathlete, right? And so I went to the dancer. I didn't say I can't do this. I went to the professional who was supposed to teach me, and I said, I am the most uncoordinated person ever, but I will be the hardest working person. And I knew that some of the other people who were in this event had been cheerleaders and on their dance team at school, and I knew they totally had an advantage. And he said, well, we'll work on it. And we did. And at that point, he suggested we do a tango because it was a dance that moves kind of straight, dum, 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 a little bit more than the, wiggly dances. Well, we ended up winning that competition. And more importantly, we raised $500,000 that night for breast cancer, which I was so proud of. And, in doing some, I had just had surgery, so it was hard to even do some of the moves that we were doing, but it also was wonderful to kind of move around like that. Sadly, after the event, I asked, where did the money go? I'd like to know specifically where we sent that money. And they said, well, some of it goes to research and some of it goes to support, but we've got a big staff, so we have to pay for staff, and we have to pay for the rent, and we have to pay for. I said, wait a second. Of the $500,000 that we gave you, how much of it goes to other costs, not helping cancer patients? They said, well, about $200,000. What? I was appalled. And the people who we were raising money with, my team, said, we can't do anything about it. I said, by God, we can. And we turned around and we went to the IRS and we applied to become our own charity that is completely run by volunteers. There are no overhead costs. If we have to print something, I'll pay to print it. When we hold our fundraiser, we get the hotel to donate. I get a friend of mine to donate all the wine, who's a restaurant owner. We get someone else to donate all the food. We do all the printing ourselves. The dancers donate their time to teach. And now, every year when we do that, $500,000 goes directly to the hospital. We write a check after the event. The people that come together with me to plan that event and the people who donate are amazing people. When you watch the news, sometimes you'll get the sense that this world is not a nice place. But I am here to tell you there are good people in it. And I urge you to be one of them. And seek them out to be your friends in your own life. And remember, you can do anything. Some of the topics that I know blessing of going to the school's Cardinal O'Hara in Springfield, Pennsylvania, and we had a television station in our high school, and then all of the televisions went in every classroom. So we did kind of a news broadcast in the morning, Wake Up O'Hara, and I was involved with that, and then went to the journalism program at Northwestern.
Right here. Stand up. Be very loud. Do you have a specific favorite that you really looked up to help you, pursue your dream?
You know, I did, and the interesting thing is I'm old, and so when I started out in this business, there were not a lot of women in the business. Diane Sawyer was about the only one, and the interesting thing is, I talk like this because you probably noticed the little accent when I said Colonel O'Hara. I had a very, very strong East Coast accent. When I moved to the Midwest, my roommates were like, oh my gosh, we can't understand you. So I would tape record Diane Sawyer's newscast every night, and then I would write down what she said and read it back and tape myself. I'm like, oh, I sound terrible. I need to talk like her. I need to, conduct myself in as professional a manner as her. I tell people a lot of times when you public speak, if you get up, sometimes even if you answer your phone, it's hello, or you get up, because you think your high voice is that voice that you're supposed to use. Use your strong voice always, whether you're giving presentations, whether you are talking to people, and that's what I got from her. I felt like her voice was strong, and I listened to mine, and it seemed weak. It was perhaps that I was not confident, but it's kind of the thing that a lot of people do. You heard that nurse talking in the story. She has a pulse of this, she has this, right? She's great at what she does, but she could use her stronger voice.
Other questions? Yes, stand up, please. Do you ever get nervous before going on air?
I've been doing this for such a long time now that I don't, usually. But I will tell you, yesterday, I was doing a story on a fundraising effort that I'm involved with where we give prosthetic legs to young children who have stepped on bombs and things like that in Syria and in Cambodia and in Vietnam. And the fundraiser is Thursday night, and there's a band that is playing. It's called Rocktoberfest. The band is made up of my children and my husband. And I was nervous to do a story with them because it's like, I want them to look as good as they can. And so, oddly, I get nervous when I really, really want to do a good job for the people that I am doing the story on. When Cardinal George died, he was very dear to me. And when I had to go on the air, I was nervous because I thought, I want to do the best I can here. But day in and day out, no. They say 3 seconds, and I'm still on my phone, checking my phone, and they're like, Dina, 2, 1. And then we say, good afternoon. There was some up front here, right? Someone had a question? Go ahead.
What do you think your biggest contribution to society has been?
Wow. Ooh, that's a big question. Well, I love my job as a medical reporter, and it took me some time. I had to be a general assignment news reporter up until this point. And I really decided once I started reporting on medicine that I wanted to go back to medical school. And God had a different plan for me because when I applied and got accepted, I found out I was pregnant. And I needed to take care of my child, and so I didn't do that. And my mom gave me some good advice. She said, maybe your role in the world is to make medicine more understandable to everyone else, to bring the word about new treatments and how to take care of yourself and how to be a better person to the masses. So I would like to think that that's my contribution. I can help people. I've done stories on new treatments, and people call me up and said, I wouldn't have known about that had you not done the story on it. So maybe we can save lives.
One more question in the front here. You may specific new piece you've worked on that you like the most? What's your favorite?
Well, I think I probably brought those to you. I mean, definitely our reporting from Rome has been amazing. It's been very gratifying for me personally, and I think they've been real quality pieces, and that piece ended up winning an Emmy as well. And the stories that we've done out of Lurie Children's, because we see how much people give of themselves for the health of children and how much we value you as you grow up to be the future of our society. So those are the stories I'm most proud of.
Dina, I have a closing question for you. What leadership skills do you have that you thought contributed the most to your success?
I think it all comes back to the person that you are inside, because people can see through a phony. And so if you're pretending to be someone you're not, then you're not the leader. It's the person who's comfortable in their own skin and the person who knows in their heart of hearts that they are exactly who they are meant to be is the person who's going to be the leader. So I would like to think that that is what makes me a leader, but not better than so many other people in the world, because there are a lot of people that I follow because I think they're amazing as well. And like I said, surround yourself with those people, the people that make you better, not the people that bring you down.
Thank you so much. Dina Bair. You are an inspiration to all of us. Now I welcome Dina Bair, who has a gift showing our appreciation for you, Dina. Losing my remarks here. We sincerely hope that you enjoyed your visit to Regina Dominican High School today and your glimpse of our Leadership Institute. We trust that you had a productive day and that you have some ideas for how you can become a stronger leader in your own school. We would like to thank the following for their hard work in putting together this Leadership Institute. All junior high school students and moderators, Notre Dame College Prep students and faculty, Regina Dominican student council leaders, Regina Dominican faculty and staff that helped make this day a reality. And I'd like to give a special thanks to Miss Peggy Miles, even though she didn't want me to thank her, who directed and organized the activities and helped to keep us all on track. At this time, I would like to thank all others who worked hard to make this Junior High Leadership Conference a success. Let's give them all a round of applause. Next year, we hope that you will join us again for the conference, which will be held in our newly renovated O'Shaughnessy Auditorium. Thank you all for attending, and we hope to see you again next year. Now I will hand it over to Claire and Maggie, our student council leaders, who will close the activities for today.
Like Dr. Lane said, we hope that you have learned a lot from both our keynote speaker, Dina Bair, and from your breakout sessions. We want to encourage you to take what you have learned and put that knowledge to use in your schools. Remember to lead with a purpose today and for the rest of the year. Thank you once again for joining us today, and please have safe travels back to your schools. And if all Regina students could please remain seated until our guests have left. So junior high students, if you could follow the leaders out to the student entrance.